people? Welcome back to another Offside Trap video. It's the four of us again, and there's been some moments that we are going to discuss. Doc, how are you doing?
All good, thank you. Welcome in everyone, and evening all.
Dan, how are we getting on?
Yeah, not so bad. Hope everyone's good on this fine Saturday evening.
And last but not least, Big P, how are we getting on, mate?
I am a happy hammer tonight, and I hope everyone is well. Welcome in.
Now, before we get straight into the fixtures or the results, we've got P talking about the mystery player who had the clues last week. If anyone can put in the comments who they had or who they thought the player was from the three clues that P gave last week. P, who was the player?
So the player from last week was the one and only Mr. Ian Wright.
Ian, right.
Doc, did you get that one right?
Yeah, I got it quite convincingly. There's not that many, I don't think, that's had the two sons played. So yeah, I got that one myself, and well done, because I know that there was someone in the comments last week who got it right. I did notice straight away, but obviously we couldn't give the game away.
Dan, did you get it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Now, before we get into our first game, we have already got someone in the chat. Bill, you're dressed like a Butlins rep. So that's a great start to the stream. Martin is the Gorillas.
Violation.
So,
We got Martin. Like and subscribe, Martin.
Cheers, Martin. That's one, mate. 2 minutes in, and I already want to give up.
Guys,
now,
just to let you know that once the show's over, Billy's doing a special chocolate dance.
No. No, and no. Now, Pete, I'll come to you last on this one because it is your team. Everton 1, West Ham 3. From what I've seen, that West Ham were lucky to get the 3 points. The scoreline says otherwise, but with Everton getting 22 shots away and 11 of them on target, and only walking away with 1 goal from that, there's some bad juju that P's done to Goodison Park. Doc, what was your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't manage to watch the whole game. I'm sure Pete watched a lot more of it than me. But with regards to the highlights and the research that I've done, it does look like that the scoreline hasn't actually reflected the game as such. But you know what? Fair play to West Ham. Fair play, because they've had a bit of a tricky patch, haven't they? And they've had a bit of, they've had the Moyes embargo sort of hanging over their heads. And in the last couple of weeks, they've obviously put into impressive performance with regards to the goals that they've scored, and they've walked away with 3 points. So fair play.
Dan, what was your thoughts on the West Ham Everton game?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of them where both teams really needed the 6 points. The 3 points, rather. Everton, had an opportunity to go 1-0 ahead. He had a penalty. Areola saved it. Poor penalty, by the way, from Beto. I said it last week when we was kind of making our predictions that I thought West Ham would win this game just because Everton failed to score. They seemed to find it really difficult at putting the ball in the net. Obviously, the amount of shots that they had today and only scoring 1 goal kind of reflects that as well. Listen, I'm a Liverpool fan. I don't want Everton to go down. I love the Merseyside derby, but I think they are in real trouble. Obviously, they got the 4 points back earlier in the week or last week or whenever it was. But yeah, I fear for Everton, to be quite honest. West Ham, really good professional performance. And yeah, Moyes looks like he's kind of settling down after a bit of a torrid time.
Finally, P, I know you're dying to talk about this one. Firstly, what was your thoughts on the game? He's buzzing. What was your thoughts on the game? And then what does this mean for West Ham potentially moving forward? Does it mean anything?
I generally thought that we were poor. Everton kept the ball a lot longer than us. the difference in the game, Bill, and I'll be brutally honest, is we were clinical and they wasn't. As Dan touched on there, they missed a penalty, which was a save for Mariola. It is a poor penalty. But Calvin Lewin on the bench for them, do you know what I mean? I thought that was a right touch for West Ham because he's quite good in the air. And I thought he could have caused us a few problems. But to see him on the bench, I was like, that's a touch. But again, it's West Ham and it go 1-0 down. And then we wait till the last 15 minutes to sort of pull our fingers out and play the game, and to score 2 in 90 minutes. And it's the 2, you'd say Souček has to would score out of the 3 that have scored. Do you know what I mean? Our holding midfielder and our centre half didn't really trouble Pickford through the game. I think Everton had 22 shots on goal, 11 on target, made nearly 100 passes more than us on the day. But that's David Moyes' football, and it hit on the counter-attack. He's happy to sit in and play that way and use Paqueta, Kudus and Bowen to sort of hit them on the break, and ultimately that's what we've done. I think where we go now is we're moved up to 7th now from 8th, -4 goal difference. I'm just praying that Man United take an Ireland tomorrow, just to sort of bring, because they're on 0. So if they can come down, even if it's -3, do you know what I mean? It's not as bad as what it was. But I've been David Moyes' biggest critic in the last probably year. But I'm sorry, like, if he can get again European football, even if it's Conference League or some sort of European football for next season, you probably have to say that he should sign the contract and stay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think. Do you think that this buys Moyes some more time with this sort of performance that we're seeing, or do we think that it's just one of those things with, like, it's just one of those games where Dyche's tactics fell into Moyes' tactics hands, sort of thing? Do you think that Moyes has earned a bit of a break now to potentially have a bit more time?
I don't think he's earned a bit of a break. I think it was expected that we got there and take 3 points out of the 4 games that we had. We had Forest, we lost. Brentford, we beat. Today we've won. Burnley next week. They're 4 games that we should have been taking 12 points from. Ultimately, if we can take 9 out of the 12, you probably said that buys him a bit more time. But if we go to, just say, argument's sake, Luton in a couple of weeks, we will be playing at home and we get beat 4-5-0 there, you're back to square one again. So I think it does buy him a bit of time, but we're only one horror performance away from it all coming back. Do you know what I mean? That's the issue.
Can I just put a little spin on this? Because all of the talk that I hear with regards to West Ham is, has Moyes bought more time? Is Moyes gonna stay? But do you know something? I've got a funny feeling Moyes is not going to sign the contract. I genuinely believe that West Ham have showed their hand now that they've offered the contract, but I don't think Moyes is signing it. I think if Moyes was signing that contract, I would like to have thought that he would have signed it already and he would be able to focus on the footballing things. And I think it's no coincidence that he hasn't signed it. And I've got this funny feeling that he's going to walk away at the end of the season. And I generally believe that West Ham are going to be looking back and thinking, I wish we treated this man with a bit more respect, because the flat that he's got, yes, I understand that if it's not the style of football that you want, but at the end of the day, it's the same style of football that's delivering you European football and the European trophy, and is nearly going to deliver European football again. So I think you need to give the man a bit of respect. And I honestly generally believe that he's not going to sign that contract, and I think he's going to walk.
Look, I've had my opinions. I hope he don't sign the contract. I really don't. But if he does, then he does, and I'll still carry on supporting the club. I think he will sign the contract if we qualify for Europe. And I think if he gets us to the Europa League semi-final, he will sign the contract. If we don't get in Europe, then I think he walks away.
Yeah. Just quickly before we move on, Martin's put in the comments, Big P, what's your feelings on Moyes? I can't believe the grief he gets. So obviously, you voiced your opinions already about Moyes and those sorts of things. Do you think the grief he gets is fair?
It isn't. It isn't. It's a tough one because I said he should have left last year after we won the Conference League. And that's not sacked. He should have walked away. Now, ultimately, Everton today, with the side we've got, we should have gone up there, dominated possession and won the game. Instead, we're sitting in, making Everton look like Brazil, and we still win the game 3-1. Ultimately, we've come away with 3 points. You sort of don't care what the performance is if you win the game. But had we lost today, people would have been going, well, got beat 5-0 at Fulham, beat 6-0 at home to Arsenal, been beat by Everton there. Where are we going? as a football club. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's them results that have sort of put this sort of tarnished his sort of reputation, so to speak. But look, he's given the club some fantastic years. The last 3 years have been fantastic, and you'll always be grateful for that. But at some stage, you have to move on.
Yeah. Moving on now to the next topic. We have got Fulham 3, Brighton 0. First thing I want to highlight is De Zerbi. Do we think that his tactics and his style has been exposed now, and he's just not on it? Ferguson, is he the striker that everyone thought that this young Irish wonder kid was? And yeah, Brighton was 70% possession in that game. Like, how Fulham can only have 30% possession and get the 3 points from that, or get the 3 goals from that, is beyond me. But yeah, Doc, what was your feelings on this game?
It's a funny one, and obviously, I am a bbit cautious that, you know, when I speak on Brighton, people just feel like it's the Palace Brighton sort of, you know, conversation, but that's not the case. I generally like to give an honest opinion, and for me, Brighton this season, you know, they've had some great results, and let's be honest, their position is quite impressive considering they're still in Europe, and with regards to the fact that, you know, that I actually thought this season they were going to get found out a little bit, but they were going to slip down the league a little bit. But let's not take nothing away from Brighton as a club. However, I honestly don't understand what the hype is with this manager. I really don't see it. I don't see where the hype comes from this manager. This is the same manager that a couple of weeks ago had a very, very similar record to Hodgson over like 13, 14 games. And yet one is being told that he needs to retire and he's finished. And the other one is being not only praised, but being linked with some of the biggest jobs in world football. And I just think it's absolutely ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. I can't believe that we're talking about that's the best person available, a manager that's losing games regularly at the moment, losing more than they're winning in the league in particular, for the big jobs. I just don't see it. I don't understand where this hype has come from this manager and what he's done to warrant it. Myself personally, I think Potter, when he was at Brighton, got a Chelsea job, and people said, "What has he done to deserve a Chelsea job?" But yet we've got a manager at Brighton doing less good things than what Potter done. And now we're talking about him being offered the Barcelona job. And I've heard that he's second on the Liverpool radar. Like, if Alonso don't get the job, it's absolutely ludicrous, in my opinion.
Yeah. Dan, what's your feelings on the Fulham and Brighton game, and obviously with De Zerbi and stuff as well?
Yeah, I mean, no surprise, to be fair. Fulham winning this one. Craven Cottage is becoming a little bit of a fortress, to be fair. They've been really, really good since he come back up to the Premier League at home. So, yeah, probably 3-0. How wide it was, you know, probably a little bit of a surprise. But Fulham, you know, winning in of itself, you know, not the biggest of shocks to anyone. In terms of Roberto De Zerbi, I think he's a good manager. I think he's a good coach, but you have to be able to adapt. And when you're having 70% of the ball and you're losing 3-0, that kind of tells me that you're having possession for the sake of having possession. When you're 3-0 down and you're up against it and you need to get back into the game, sometimes you need to cut out all these pointless passes along the back line and just be a little bit more direct, a little bit more aggressive. You know, and show a little bit of urgency. You know what I mean? You can't be looking to control possession when you're 3-0 down. You've got to change the game. You've been controlling the ball the entire game, and you're 3-0 down. Why are we still approaching the game with the same sort of philosophy? Doesn't really make sense to me. And the best coaches in the world are always able to adapt. So for me, I know Doctor just touched on it there about De Zerbi being linked with the likes of Barcelona and Liverpool. He's a million miles away from being ready for that sort of job. A million miles away. He's a good manager, and his teams play good football when it is working. But yeah, you have to be able to adapt to be ready for these big jobs. And he's obviously proven time and time again that he's kind of stubborn in the way he wants to approach. And that's going to hold him until he's ready to, change things up a little bit.
He has got a very good record in European football, though, and I think that's the other thing that is just giving him a little bit of a pass, so to speak, because he is performing against the big clubs. I mean, if you look at Brighton's record in Europe this year, it's up there with most teams.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think the reason for that is because in the Europa League, in Europe, typically teams will look to play. Generally speaking, the teams in Europe play a particular brand of football, so the press will be very high. Brighton can unlock that with the way that they play. Obviously, Fulham kind of done the opposite today, look to sit in and be compact and hit them on the counter, and that's what he did. Just had success, took their time, waited for the right moments to press, and yeah, absolutely not a smash and grab, because 3-0 doesn't suggest it was close. But yeah, Brighton just played into Fulham's hands. And in Europe, obviously, you get a little bit more allowances with how you're able to play. But in the Premier League, teams are wise to this. They know how to defend it. Low block, counter. And if you can't cope with them physically, then this is what happens.
Yeah. P, what's your thoughts on Brighton? Obviously, Doc touched upon it with Craven Cottage as well, being a bit of a fortress. What's your thoughts on this?
I don't understand the hype around Brighton, to be honest with you. I think they overachieved last season massively. I've spoken to Brighton fans. They're happy just to be in the Premier League and survive. That's their ambitions. You could say that's a lack of ambition. They qualified for Europe. They've taken it in their stride. I just think this is a normal Brighton we're seeing. As for De Zerbi, I struggle to see what he's changed that Potter didn't do. I think he's just come in and adapted. And this is what I meant when, I don't know if you remember, you go back a few years ago when Swansea were in the Premier League, Rodgers left for Liverpool, Martinez went in there. Martinez was this fantastic manager. He just adopted what Brendan Rodgers had put in place. Now, ultimately for me, I see De Zerbi being linked on the radar of Bayern Munich in the week. Do you know what I mean? And you just think to yourself, I just struggled. I agree with Doc. I struggled to see what all the hype is around this bloke, because we're talking Bayern Munich, and it's not, people will say it's not the Bayern Munich of old, but it's still Bayern Munich. They're still a giant within European football. And this guy's being linked with them. Now, ultimately, I don't see the hype around Brighton as a football club. I don't see the hype around the manager, and that's just me personally. I think they overachieved massively last year. They've taken it in their stride this year, but this result really wasn't a surprise for me.
Yeah. Quickly, just before we move on, Martin's put in a comment. I also think it's so misunderstood how difficult it is for teams to adjust from just domestic competitions to then European on top. Massive increase of pressure and congestion. I think that was one of the reasons why I had Brighton down in my predictions at the start of the season to not finish sort of any top 8. I think would have been lucky for them, maybe even 9th or 10th, because with European football, it is like Martin said, just an increase of pressure and congestion with it.
I'd understand that. I'd understand that a little bit more though if they wasn't having more possession, more shots, creating more, and if they had a few injuries where they were being outplayed and they were losing games. I understand that, but at the end of the day, let's be real. If they're dominating possession and they're having more shots on target and they're still not scoring, you cannot blame that on European football. That is just the clinicalness of their finishing, and they just seem to be lacking this season. They're not firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Just before we move on, I think one thing that they do really need to shore up on is the defence. I think they've conceded in every single Premier League game this season. Obviously, the loss of McAllister and Caicedo in the summer, massive losses for them, and the way they kind of attack the ball when out of possession. But yeah, defensively, things really need to change because they're conceding far too many goals. And if they don't start putting the ball in the net and changing these results around, sooner or later they're going to find themselves in real trouble. I don't think relegation. I think obviously they're kind of out of harm's way in terms of that. But I mean, next season, if they don't improve that defense, it could be in some real danger.
I think next season they're going to come a cropper. I think if even more so if they don't have European football. I've been saying this all along with Brighton as a club. Enjoy it while it lasts, and by all means, enjoy bracing in your glory like they do with Palace fans with regards to the 2 years that they've overachieved us. But I can honestly see, and I'm not just saying it to get a rise from people, but I can generally see that power is shifting next season. I really can.
Yeah. Moving on now to the next game. Newcastle 3, Wolves 0. The only question I have on this game is this a turning point for Newcastle? Doc, I'll start with you.
I mean, I think when you say turning point, I think it's a bit disrespectful with regards to what they've achieved at the start of the season. So I think it's the kicking on point. I don't think it's necessarily the turning point. I think, as a whole this season, I think Newcastle have done okay. I generally think they've done okay. I don't class Newcastle as, one of the top 6. I think if they get a European spot, they've done well. But for me, Newcastle is Newcastle. They're not a club that's got a given right to the top 4. Yes, obviously they had a buyout, and yes, they've got some good players. But even the players that they've got, they're not. If you compare them to the big hitters and the clubs that they're trying to compete with, they're very, very low on the ground for starters, and man for man, they probably come off worse than most of these clubs that they're trying to compete with. So it's no surprise to me that Newcastle find themselves where they are. I also think with Newcastle, their biggest problem they've got is if we believe, or what we was led to believe, that they had to sell in January to adhere to this FFP, and we know they didn't sell, then there's every likelihood that I think Newcastle will be the next team to get this FFP. And if they do get that FFP, they're going to end up being a mid-table side competing for nothing. And that's not good enough for a club, that's had the investment that they've had. But I don't think it's a turning point as such. I think Newcastle will be Newcastle. I think, at home they'll put in a performance and they'll do well. I was more disappointed in Wolves than I was Newcastle, to be honest. I looked at it the other way around. I thought, with the run that they've been on and how well they've been playing, even when they've lost games. I mean, I'm looking at the Manchester United game recently where they gave them a right good game. And Gary O'Neill's doing a fantastic job. So I think Wolves will be disappointed today. I think with regards to Newcastle, fair play. You got the points, and it seems like it was quite deserved. With regards to Wolves, now they're picking up a few injuries. They picked up 2 more today. One in the warm up or before the game, so that's 3. 2 in midweek. Wolves season could be fading quite fast if they're not careful.
Yeah, Dan, what's your thoughts with the Newcastle Wolves?
To be quite honest, there's not really much else to say. Doctor just pretty much covered it all. I'd just be repeating what Doctor said. Newcastle, they've been unlucky with injuries and whatnot this season. They have had a hell of a lot of players missing for large parts. I've always had a soft spot for Newcastle, so hopefully they can kind of settle down now and, maybe qualify for Europe, sneak into the Europa League qualification places via a cat flap, who knows. But yeah, aside from that, nothing else to say, really.
Big P, what's your thoughts on this?
Bit of a surprise for me, really. I actually thought Wolves would go there, but then when I looked at the team news this afternoon, Wolves didn't have a recognised striker on the pitch because they're all injured. Now, ultimately, that affects the way you play, especially going forward and getting goals. I think Pedro Neto was the man down the middle.
Yeah,
he's about 5'5", and 5'4". He's not the tallest of players. All right,
and he went off injured as well.
Oh, did he? There you go. Then, so he's great. He's great on the ball. He's great out wide. He's trickery, but he's not a middleman. I don't think it's a turning point for Newcastle. I just think it's a good result for them on the day. I still see them going places and getting beat. So, yeah.
Moving on now to the next game is Dan's team, and it is Nottingham Forest 0, Liverpool 1. Doc, I'm going to come to you first because I know you have quite strong opinions about Liverpool and some of their players, but I'll come to you first with it. What's your thoughts on this game?
I mean, I'm just going to say the bare minimum, and I'm going to leave it to the Liverpool fan to do it as an analyst on the game. I just think it's a massive, massive win. You know, if you want to win the title, you need to grind out these results. And if you drop points at Forest today, they are the sort of games that potentially cost you the title. Winning a game like that is potentially a game that wins you a title. So, you know, they got the job done in the end. Fair play. I think any Liverpool fan that says it was convincing or they were happy with the performance, I would very much disagree. And the scenes at the end of the game was absolutely disgusting. But I think we'll touch on them points a bit later.
Yeah, Dan. Just before I come to you, obviously you are the Liverpool fan, so you'll have the you can explain it in further detail. But Big P, I'll come to you first with this one. Forest, I don't know. They seem like they've had a sort of good home record. Obviously, Liverpool. This is the first time Liverpool have ever beaten Forest away at their ground. What's your thoughts on it all?
I think this is a fantastic win for Liverpool, and what I mean by fantastic win is you look at the side that Liverpool put out today and Jurgen put out, and it's a very depleted Liverpool side. It's a side that we're not used to seeing. There was a kid in the midfield. There's a kid playing at right back. Joe Gomez was playing centre midfield. Do you know what I mean? It's a depleted Liverpool side. I want to leave the majority of it for Dan, but ultimately I think it's a great 3 points. And as Doc said, if you're going to be champions, these are the games you've got to be winning, because I'm telling you what, at 4:45, people are going, this is in Man City's hands. Oh no, 99th minute when it's Kloppy time, bang. Do you know what I mean? Darwin Nunez.
The one thing I would add is if this carries on with these late winners, then at least we won't be hearing Fergie time mentioned much anymore. So at least it puts that to bed.
Dan, moving on to you now, mate. What's your feelings on this? You know, leaving it to the last minute. Darwin Nunez, a guy that you've been an advocate for when I especially haven't been. Keeping it clutch for you. What's your feelings on this?
Buzzing, in a word, to be honest. One of those games where in previous seasons where we've kind of finished a point behind Man City, we wouldn't have kind of done what we did today. We either would have lost the game trying to chase it and got caught on the break, or we wouldn't have been able to find a way to turn a draw into a win. And like the boys have already said, to win the title, you need to be winning these sort of games. Forest is a very difficult place to go. Obviously, the fact that we've never won there in the Premier League before kind of tells its own story. But yeah, massive win for us. Like BP's already touched on, a depleted team. You know, missing a whole host of, you know, first teamers, Alisson Becker. Obviously, Trent was missing. No Mohamed Salah. Dominic Szoboszlai first minutes in a good while. Bobby Clark obviously starting in midfield. So yeah, to pull off another win in the circumstances we did and in the manner that we did, 99th minute, brilliant. There's no better time to win a game than with a last minute winner. As a fan, the feeling that you get when that happens with your team is incredible. And yeah, listen, I'm looking forward to next week. Hopefully we get Salah back. And if we can go into the international break, I think we've got Everton before we go into the international break. I'm sure that's the case. If we can beat City next week and then beat Everton and go into the international break, you know, top of the league, then I'll be extremely confident, because that international break gives a chance to, you know, get everyone back in, let everyone recharge, and, you know, we go on the final stretch of the season. But let's see what happens. Next week is absolutely massive. And listen, next week, my mood that I felt today when Nunez scored that header in the 99th minute could be very, very different when Man City comes down field. So we'll see. Don't want to get too carried away, but you have to win these games, and we did it. And yeah, Darwin Nunez, 25th goal contribution this season. Not bad for a flop. 81 minutes. Every 81 minutes he gets a goal contribution this year. So not bad for someone who everyone was writing off after finding his feet last year.
Dan, just a quick question. Obviously, you've won the Carabao Cup and you're still in the FA Cup. You're top of the league and you're in the Europa League.
Yeah.
If Klopp goes on to win all 4 of them, do you
Yeah.
think that you could see him making a U-turn on his decision to leave the club? And this is why Liverpool ain't
No.
too quick in appointing someone.
No. I don't think he's the kind of man really to go back on his own decision. He's kind of been the sort of guy when he's been in the job, not just as a manager, but he seems to be like the sort of man who just stands by his conviction, and what he says he's going to do, he'll stand by. So yeah, I really can't see him sticking with us, regardless of how many trophies we end up winning this year. And by the way, just for the record, I don't think we will win the quadruple, but will I party like a man's never partied before? If we do, then yeah, absolutely. I'm going to check myself into the nearest hospital ASAP if that happens, because my liver's going to be taking a kicking, let me tell you.
Just quickly before we move on, Martin's coming, said, love this channel and the shows. Keep it up, lads. Cheers, Martin. Really appreciate it and the support. And yeah, don't forget to keep your comments coming. We will respond to them. It may take a little bit of time. Also, to Breeze coming in and saying Klopp is definitely going. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, isn't it, with that? Moving on to the next game. Doc, don't worry. This will be a quick one. Tottenham 3, Palace 1.
I'm not worried.
Apart from the Eze free kick, I'm not going to pretend like I've watched the game. I didn't. I've seen the highlights. And all I saw was an Eze free kick from Palace. And then I just saw four or five Spurs chances. So there's not much. I've seen a few things like Werner. Is he got something to prove in the Prem? Is that why he's coming back? And do you think he's going to try and perform better than he did for Chelsea? Doc, I'll start with you. Actually, no, I won't. It's Palace. Big P, I'll start with you on this one. What was your thoughts on it?
So yeah, I've only seen the highlights on this one, and I think obviously Eze back for Palace is a massive boost. And I actually backed Palace to win this last week 2-1 because I thought that with a new guy coming in and Palace getting players back, that they would be sort of doing a U-turn. Now, ultimately, I think Eze's free kick was a decent free kick. Let's be honest, he's 25 yards out. He stuck it in the top corner. Not many players could do that week in, week out. But they let Tottenham back in with a sloppy goal. Do you know what I mean? You're 1-0 up 20 minutes ago. Just get rid of the ball. Instead, they try to play out, and Anderson sort of mucks it around, and Lerma couldn't do what he couldn't. But then Tottenham were by far probably the better team. As for Werner, do I think he's got something to prove? 100%. Do I think Tottenham's the right club? No, I don't. But that's just me. I just don't think he's a player that can play in the Premier League. You get what? You can either can or you can't. And I just think he's one of them players that can't play in the Premier League.
Yeah. Dan, what's your thoughts with Spurs and Palace? Were you thinking Spurs were winning this one and everything that unfolded?
Excuse me. I mean, last week with the predictions, I predicted a draw with this. 0-0 actually I went for. And yeah, I kind of envisaged a sort of situation where Palace would go there and look to be a little bit more compact and not as expansive with the ball as they were. I think ultimately with Oliver Glasner, it's going to take time. He needs to kind of recruit the right personnel. I know they've got players there who are very capable of playing the style that he wants to, but obviously to kind of play a style where you want to dominate the ball, you want to press very heavily. Every single man in the team needs to be comfortable with the ball in every area of the pitch. And obviously at Palace at the moment, they haven't quite got that. But yeah, I mean, I don't think they can be too disheartened. The fact that he's come in, he won last week, and then they've gone to Spurs and lost. I don't think... Listen, if Crystal Palace would have won today, that's all tell you himself. It would have been an absolute dream start for Glasner. Two wins out of 2 games. The fact that he's gone to Palace and lost, it's no... I'm sure it's no skin off any Crystal Palace's nose. I don't think really they went there and expected to win. Maybe new manager bounce, who knows, it plays a part sometimes. But I mean, Spurs are a good side themselves. They're a really, really good side. You know, top 4 or 5 side in England. So, yeah, expected really. I know Doctor will obviously be disappointed. But yeah, I don't think, given the start Glasner's had, I don't think anyone can be too disappointed.
Yeah. Doc, it is your time, mate. What was your feelings going into it, and equally, what was your feelings going out of it?
It's a tricky one for me because going into the game, I was confident that we could cause Tottenham problems because the last few games, for me, Tottenham haven't been convincing. And to be honest with you, I don't think they were very convincing today, if I'm totally honest. I'm more disappointed today, not with the performance of the team, with the substitutions and the ethic of the substitutions is where I question mark things, because I don't understand what this guy's doing now, and I don't want to give him too much criticism because it's at the end of the day it's his second game in charge, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I just feel like today was a very, very typical Crystal Palace, and I would go as far as to say Roy Hodgson performance. And what I mean by that was 1-0 up, and we make substitutions and we go defensive. And I don't understand the logic. I don't understand the mentality of it. I've never have, and I never will. And regardless of who's in charge, whoever, if they carry on doing this, it will always be our downfall. We cannot go defensive and expect to see out a 1-0 win, because when we go defensive, at best, we end up with a draw. 3 goals in 11 minutes isn't good enough, full stop. And I honestly think that those 3 goals has made Tottenham look like they've won the game convincingly, and Tottenham are this great team. And you know, I don't think that they was particularly great today. They did not look like scoring until they scored, which is quite ironic. But they didn't. They generally didn't look like scoring. Like I wasn't worried in the game. I wasn't sitting there worried, thinking, "Oh, they've had this shot, oh, they've had that shot, the goal's coming." Until the substitutions, until we went defensive. And as soon as we done that, I thought, right, now we're on the back foot. They're going to come at us. They score the first goal, and then I'm sitting there thinking, let's hope we can hold out. They score the second goal, and then I'm thinking, right, the game's done. And then they go and score the third goal just to put the cherry on the top. And that's the gutting thing for me, really, more than anything else, like I said. But then, like Dan's touched on, this manager can only work with what we've got. When you're playing 3 at the back, one of the 3 that he's playing at the back, I personally wouldn't play in my squad full stop, let alone in my starting lineup, and let alone in a back 3 scenario. So it is all about trusting the process, and hopefully he'll get it right, and he can bring in a few more players that can help him play that way. It was great to see Eze back. Personally, I wouldn't have played him today. I wouldn't have risked him, especially after Elise. Great to have him back, and long may it continue. And we go on to next week. It's a big game for us next week, and I honestly think that, you know, you'll get it right next week, and you'll probably see more of a performance at home against Luton that you see against Burnley, and less of a performance that you see today. So we just put it to bed and we move on.
Yeah.
Doc, do you think that Luton game is a big 6-pointer?
Nah, not at all. I don't think any of these games are 6-pointers. I don't think that. For me, it's a 6-pointer if it's out of us or Luton to go down, and for me, it's not. We're not in the reckoning of going down. I have no doubt about that at all. We can afford to lose against Luton, and it won't be any relevant to our position at all, apart from maybe finishing a position up. I generally believe, and I've always believed, that come the end of the season, we'll probably be where we are now, 13th. So, not worried about it at all.
Moving on now to the next game, I will say, actually, no, I won't. I've just seen Fabrice's comment that I'll highlight. Palace are in a relegation battle 100%. I think it depending on what position you look at it, meaning if you've got Fabrice's eyesight, then you're looking at it from that perspective. But yeah, ultimately, I don't think so.
I just think it's an absolute ludicrous conversation with regards to a relegation fight with a club that is nowhere near the relegation and hasn't touched near relegation. You know, if we're in a relegation battle, that's fine. Okay, I accept that. We're in a relegation battle. But that means the relegation battle this year is 7 teams. Because at one point we went above Burnley, above Bournemouth today. Brentford, Forest, Everton, Luton, Sheffield United, Crystal Palace, Everton. So what? 8 teams are in a relegation battle for 3 now, is it? Because the last time that's not how it worked. But fair enough.
Moving on now to the next game, Brentford 2, Chelsea 2. I'm going to keep my opinions to myself for now. Doc, I'll start with you on this one. What was your thoughts on this?
I predicted a 2-2, so I was quite chuffed. I think I see this coming along like a mile off, to be honest. I generally did. I thought Chelsea will always score a couple of goals, but they will always be fragile at the back for me. With Brentford's striking options, they will always score a couple of goals and they will always concede a couple of goals. And like I said, it didn't surprise me in the slightest that this one finished 2-2. I'm not sure who would be happier with the point, if either of you would be happy with the point. But I mean, I suppose a point away from home is still a point, isn't it? So I mean, I'd like to know your opinion on it, which hopefully we'll get at the end.
Dan, moving on to you on this one. What was your thoughts on this Brentford Chelsea game?
I mean, let's be honest, it's a poor result, really, isn't it, for Chelsea, to be fair? All things considered, when you factor everything in, you factor the investment. I know people are going to say you can't keep referring to the investment and whatever else. But listen, a team that have spent this much money should not be drawing to teams like Brentford. I'm sorry. They just shouldn't. Things aren't... It's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking good. Things need to improve.
It's the same team that drew with your team a few days ago over 90 minutes, though. So,
but ultimately we won. So,
the Big P, what's your thoughts on the Brentford Chelsea one? Did you predict a draw as well, or?
No, I think I had a Brentford winning this one, mate. But looking at the stats as I did earlier, 68 possession to 32, 400 passes more made by Chelsea, mate. I don't know what's going on at Chelsea Football Club, but if you watch Monday night's game, we give Brentford an hiding. Yeah, you've gone there today and drawn 2-2, and by the way, in the second half, was the worst team on the pitch. For me, 11th place now, Bill. Are you looking down or are you looking up? I'd be pretty worried if I was you. Again, it bodes the question, doesn't it? How long has Poch got? Because to me, he ain't got long.
I think, I'll break this down firstly with the result. It's disappointing from a Chelsea team.
Make sure you don't break down.
Yeah, I'm trying. With the investment to begin with, it is a factor to play into it. You cannot spend 100 or spend 200 million pounds on your midfielders and your midfield be beaten by Brentford midfielders or the midfield that we've seen go missing, like with Caicedo and Enzo. So that's definitely a factor into it. I think after today, Poch is gone. I don't think he'll be sacked, but I don't think that there's going to be any more future projects or future thoughts with Pochettino in there. The away fans are probably the fans that you are going to try and get on board the most with. And most of the away fans were telling him to Jeff off. So I don't think that's going to be going down well, and I don't see Pochettino staying here for much longer, if I'm honest. I do think we may see him to the rest of the season, and then we'll look at trying to get someone else in, and then there'll be another dreadful year or 2 or 3 years where we're still battling in mid-table. And yeah, that's all I can say on it. It's disappointing, but I saw it coming. Unfortunately, I did.
Bill, just a quick one, mate, because obviously this is now your 3rd season where you've not been great. What needs to change at Chelsea Football Club? What needs to change? Because it's got to be above. It can't be anywhere else but above.
It's the owners, 100%. I've said this from the beginning with the owners. Todd Bowley has come in and poisoned the club with his money. With his American dollars, he has come in and absolutely poisoned the club. Because he comes into the club and he fires the likes of Petr Cech, who's been around the club when we were winning. He fired the likes of Makalele, who was in the backroom staff. He knows what it takes to be a Chelsea player and a winning Chelsea player. Those sorts of those sorts of characters, even if they're not on the pitch or just in the backroom staff, they know what it takes to be a Chelsea player and actually wear the badge with pride. And if for him to come in, get rid of them, and then decides to go, let's just spend all the money we can on players that he had no idea about. Tuchel, for instance, when he was at the club, he didn't know who Mudryk was. He admitted he didn't know who Mudryk was. Bowley heard Arsenal got rumoured to him. So he went, well, that's a good idea. I'll splash 80 million on him or whatever it was. And Tuchel was like, who's he? And that's the biggest issue. That is the biggest issue. The managers are going to keep changing.
So if that's the case, what is the logic and what is the point of sacking the manager and getting rid of yet another manager that's going to cost you a load of compensation? Because at the end of the day, when the next manager comes in, if that is true to its word, then you're going to be in the same situation. You can't have it both ways. You can't keep blaming your managers all the time. And to be honest, you're running out of managers now. You are physically running out of managers unless you're going to start going into the women's league. You're running out of managers fast.
Yeah.
Like you're using them all.
It will carry on happening, and it's not going to be. It's going to be a great thing for you lot to witness, but it definitely isn't going to be great for me. It's going to keep happening because, unfortunately, our owner is the biggest issue. He's still going to fund the money because that's what he's got. He's still going to be buying players that he's never heard of. He's still going to be hiring managers that he doesn't have a clue about or their style. And unfortunately, we're going to be one of those clubs that are going to be mid-table, and they're just going to be banging out managers and trying to see what they can do with it, really.
This is kind of Chelsea, a prime example where really rich people who know absolutely nothing about football and are just looking at a football club as a business opportunity. Someone needs to do something about this. Governing bodies, the FA, I don't know who it is, but something needs to change in regards to this. I mean, when Todd Bowley first came to the club, he was taking transfer advice and recruitment advice of James Corden. James Corden. Yeah, this is who Todd Bowley's turning to get football and decision advice from. Like, you know what I mean? You're getting rid of Peter Cech and Claude McAlealy and you turn into James Corden. I don't know. Maybe he took one too many banks to the head over the years, but something needs to change, man. James Corden isn't that guy.
Listen, as long as it's Chelsea, it doesn't matter.
Moving on quickly, Martin with a comment. I think if you look at it, there are definitely 3 worse teams than Palace. They'll be fine. Obviously, replying to that comment earlier. Moving on now to the last game of the Saturday bunch. Luton 2, Villa 3. I'm going to start it simply just by saying Villa, fair play, another late minute. But Luton is this sort of team that, unfortunately, they are dropping points. But what was it? Liverpool with the last minute equaliser against them. Villa with a late winner against them. City with a late winner against them. They seem to be one of these teams, like they're away, and I do understand it is someone's back garden that you're playing in, and most Premier League players aren't used to that. But that's just my thoughts on it. Doc, what's your feelings towards this game?
I think just to echo what we said earlier on with regards to the Liverpool result, fair play to Villa to get a very, very important winner there for me. It's just to echo what we said earlier for just different reasons. If they want this top 4, they can't afford to be dropping points, especially against teams that have come up from last season. So fair play to Villa for grinding it out. 2-0 in control of the game, and they've sort of thrown it away a little bit. Luton do have this never say die attitude, and I do want to give Luton a bit of props for that. And like you said, against the big teams, they've done very, very well this season, and they've only lost by 1 goal. However, losing games by 1 goal it doesn't help. And for me, Luton will still go down this season, and it will be that team that we'll feel sorry for going down. However, they will still go down unless these point deductions hit these other clubs.
Yeah, Dan, what's your thoughts on this? Obviously, with the Villa Luton game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a surprise that Aston Villa won the game, to be fair. Maybe the pattern of how the game planned out was a little bit of a surprise. But listen, like Doctor has already said, I think you said it as well, the spirit in that Luton team is just absolutely unbelievable. Everything that you want. Never say die attitude. Run as hard as they can from the first whistle to the last. And listen, I hope they stay up. Yeah, I hope they manage to somehow avoid the drop. It's a massive, massive ask, given them the players in the squad. But yeah, I'd love to see them stay up.
P, what's your thoughts with this one, mate?
I actually watched this game for 90 minutes, and I actually thought it was a quite entertaining game. The first half, Villa looked like they were going to run away with it. 2 fantastic goals by Ollie Watkins, and let me give that guy a shout out because 1 goal behind Haaland this season, and he doesn't get half of the applause that he should, in my opinion. But
Bill does. Bill's going to put Harry Kane in goal and stick him up front, mate. Don't worry about that.
They played till 60 minutes after that. Luton come back into it, and they got it back to 2-2. And do you know what? I think Luton, everyone writ them off. Do you know? Everyone writ them off. But name me a game where they weren't entertaining, where they haven't been involved in an entertaining game full of goals. I'd love to see them stay up just for the entertainment value, personally.
Yeah. So would I. They've been really, really good value. When they first come up, people were talking about they'd be worse than Derby. They get less than 11 points, the lowest points return in Premier League history. They've absolutely proved everyone wrong. And I'd love them to stay up. Kenilworth Road as well. What a stadium to end up in the Premier League. My God. Crazy. crazy. I'd love to go there one day.
I think I've actually been there, funny enough. But I think one thing. Let's not take anything away from them. Even if they go down, they've shown a lot of spirit and they've gone down the right way. They've gone down the right way. You know, they haven't come up and not given it a go. So whatever happens, I think they can be very proud of themselves. I just think that, just like we said, they didn't have enough when they come up. I still think when push comes to shove, they're just not going to have enough about them, I'm afraid. I think that we're going to give them all the accolades they deserve for their performances, but the performances aren't putting the points on the board, and that's the be-all and end-all, really.
I think ultimately the only thing that will save them will be the Everton and Forest situation.
Yeah. Moving on now. That is the games of the day, or the results of the day done. Moving on, we have got Dan, who will be taking us through the predictions league first. Now, if anyone isn't aware, Dan, what is what's the rules and how does it work?
Yeah, just a bit of fun, to be quite honest. Nothing too serious. We don't move like that around here. We just have a mini prediction league, where the 4 of us predict the results of Saturday's game each week. So we can kind of review it, which is what we're going to do now from last week, and then kind of preview next week's predictions. So I'll just quickly go over the points. It's 1 point for the correct result, 3 points for the correct score, and then we kind of just work out a mini 4-person league table based on who's got the most points. So today, this is obviously first week that we've done it. Doctor leads the way with, I believe...
Let me stand up for this. Sorry. Sorry.
Stand up. National anthem, Champions League theme song, get a suit and tie on. 6 points. Doctor is on.
Just looking down, that's all.
So Doctor successfully predicted not any of the scores, but he did, however, successfully predict all of the results aside from the Spurs Palace one. So 6 points. Billy, he's second in 4th place. Billy was actually the only guy to predict a correct score. He went, what did he go for? He went Fulham 3, Brighton 0. Aside from that, he got 1 other correct. So don't get too comfortable. Me and P sit in joint 3rd, joint 4th, whichever way you want to look at it. I'm going to say joint 3rd. It doesn't sound as bad. We're both on 3 points. So yeah, bit of fun. Moving on to next week. Like I say, it's just the Saturday fixtures. So Billy, starting with you. And first team is always at home. Manchester United versus Everton.
I'm going to go with a 2-0 United.
Doc.
I'm going to go 2-1 United.
P.
1-0.
Yeah, this is a difficult one for me. As a Liverpool fan, it'd be great if both teams could actually lose. Everton, I mean, I said it last week, they've struggled to score a goal. So I'm going to go Manchester United to narrowly win 1-0. Moving on, we've got Palace and Luton. I think it's only right that we start with the Crystal Palace fan at Selhurst Park. Doctor, what are we saying?
2-1 Palace.
Bill?
I'm going to go with 1-0.
Okay, and Big Pete?
Look, I'm going to go Luton 3-2. I just think there's going to be goals in this game. It's Luton concede, don't they? They score. I think Palace will have sort of goals in them. So, yeah, I'm going 3-2 Luton.
It's a really difficult one to call this. I'm going to go 1-1. I think Luton will go there and nick some, I think. It's very hard for a new manager coming in when you play a certain way and you haven't got the players to play the way you want, particularly when you go up against Luton, who have all the spirit in the world. So, yeah, 1-1. Bournemouth, Sheffield United. Big P will come to you first. This is it. Bournemouth, what are we saying?
I'm going to go 3-0 Bournemouth, mate. I'm sorry, Sheffield United fans, but yeah, I just can't see anything different.
You're not sorry, are you, Doc?
I'm going to go 2-1 Bournemouth.
2-1 Bournemouth, nice. And Bill?
I'm going to go with a 2-0 Bournemouth. I should say the team as well.
I've just got a sneaky feeling Sheffield United are going to go there and win the game. I'm going to go Sheffield United 1-0. I've just got that gut feeling. It might be the Chinese I had earlier, but I've just got a gut feeling Sheffield United are going to win that game.
Now, what was your prediction for the Palace Luton one again? Sorry, I couldn't.
1-1.
Oh yeah.
Billy's taking this seriously as well, and everyone else is down as well.
Yeah. Wolves and Fulham. This is at Molineux. Bill, we'll come to you first.
I'm going to go with 4-2 Fulham.
High scoring. P?
I'm going to go for a 2-1 Fulham. I just think Wolves have got injuries. They've had a few more injuries today. I can see Fulham going there and getting a win.
Doc, what we saying? Wolves versus Fulham?
I think 2-2. I think with Wolves' injuries and I think with Fulham scoring quite freely, I can see him getting a point there. So I think 2-2.
Yeah. It's a very difficult one to predict this as well. I'm going to go 0-0. I think Wolves will have to approach the game a certain way to kind of contain Fulham. So 0-0. Goal draw. Arsenal-Brentford, final one. I mean, it's hard to look past Arsenal in it, to be fair. I'd love to see Brentford go there and win, given obviously the ramifications it would mean in a title race. But I'm going to go Arsenal comfortable 3-0. Bill?
I've gone close. I've gone close to you, not close to those two together. 3-1 Arsenal.
Doc?
I've gone 3-1 Arsenal as well.
Big P?
I've gone 3-0 Arsenal.
And that wraps it up. Over to you, Bill.
So, if you want as well, Dan, if you want to take these notes, you can, or you can come back to the video. Tabrice has put his in the chat. So, United, Everton, 2-2. Palace, Luton, 3-2 Luton. Bournemouth, Sheffield, 2-0 Bournemouth. Wolves, Fulham, Fulham 3-1. And then Arsenal win 2-1. So,
yeah,
if you want to get involved, drop us a message and we'll put you onto the league as well. Doesn't mean you're going to get anywhere near us lot though. And that is about it. Before I do leave, there is one more thing. Big P, we have got the mystery player from Ian Wright last week. What are the 3 clues for this week's?
He was described by his manager as the best pound-for-pound greatest ever signing that he made. He won a treble, including the FA Cup, the Champions League and the Premier League. He was also relegated with a Premier League side.
So, guys, if you do want to know that again, that it will be on the outro video that we'll be playing very soon. So you can just read the clues and come back next Saturday at 10 p.m. to find out what it is. Thank you everyone for watching. Doc, been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Dan,
Peace.
pleasure as always.
Yep. You said it best. Pleasure as always. Don't do anything the good dog wouldn't do, guys.
A Big P, last of all. Been a pleasure,
Thank
mate.
you, Bill. Come on, you irons. Thank you for tuning in.
Take care and have a good one.
Darwin.